Going. Our program tonight is we have a guest speaker who I will introduce shortly, but I won't introduce we're all right now. Thank you. That I will introduce shortly. We will have a coffee break and draw our little raffle during the coffee break. Those of you who are home have to get your own coffee. And then Hugh McDonald, our president, will make some remarks, and then Cedric Wyndham will begin I Help. And this is a time when people online and here can bring him questions to deal with, difficulties. And at 9 o'clock, we will close the meeting. And if the questions and answers are still going, they can keep going informally. So that's our program for tonight. Our guest speaker is Rachel Slattery, and the subject is "The future is silver, are we ready?" Now, ageing is something that hopefully all of us in this room will get to experience. It's better than the alternative, isn't it? But ageing is totally different from experience from that of our parents and our grandparents, because times are totally different. And we all want to make this period of ageing the most fulfilling experience it can possibly be. And Rachel has a venture called Silver Futures, which is poised to help people rethink how we approach the second half of our lives to ensure a longer, healthier, contributing life. Now, I've been given a whole lot more stuff about Rachel than what I've just read, but it's better for her to tell us as part of her story. So I'd ask you all, please, to welcome to the podium Rachel Slattery.
I will try. Hopefully I'll get indications if people can't hear me. Is that all right? Okay, thank you very much. So, yet to come. What do you want to be when you grow up? Remember how many times you were asked this as a child? Do you remember what you said? Marine biologist? Astronaut? I went through stages, and now I see my children and my nieces and nephews, and they're thinking about different scenarios and different roads they can take. When did we stop being asked? When did we stop dreaming about what we want to do when we grow up? Have you stopped? Are you thinking about what you want to do when you grow up? The world, sorry, we're going old fashioned here. I'm leaning down to the laptop, so I should pause when I do that so the people on Zoom can also hear. The world is getting older. By 2050, those aged over 55 are expected to make up about 40% of the adult Australian population. This is due to a combination of fertility rates, lower immigration, and increased longevity. And the news is full of this approaching silver tsunami, with much talk about the cost and quality of aged care, as well as the burden on the budget and the number of pensioners shooting up. All of this is couched as a problem, but I see the fact that we are growing old as a wonderful opportunity for society, for communities, and for all of us. If growing older is something you're looking forward to or are enjoying, good on you, because you should. As Barry said before, those of us who get to age are the lucky ones. Mind you, I am aware of the unlucky and acknowledge the systemic injustice that exists for certain cohorts in realising their silver futures. So today I want to invite you to reimagine how we might grow old and how this might influence us now and in the future. I will share how we are aging differently from those who came before us, why how we think about our own aging really does matter, and ask you to reflect, dream, and reframe the conversations that we're having around, and all of us are having them, of how this can lead to a healthier, contributing life. About me, I've been running the Agile Australia conference for the past 15 years with my gorgeous team. As I know, I'm speaking to a lot of techies. I know you all know a bit about Agile, which is a way of building software. And it's allowed me to help steer curious minds to better ways of working. And through my passion for deep tech, which is tech that creates an impact, think quantum, AI, robotics, and it's tech that helps improve our health and our productivity and our planet. To amplify some of the innovators in that space, my team and I created Tech 23, which has been shining a light on the researchers, the innovators, and the entrepreneurs since 2009. And we recently handed Tech 23 over to new custodians, Cicada Innovations. Now, through my new project, Silver Futures, I am passionate about leading, collaborating, and guiding people to better ways of living and contributing as we age. When I realized I wanted to focus on aging, I started formally studying gerontology, which is the study of aging. And I talked about my interest to family and friends. It was fascinating to me just how the mention of the word aging just seemed to really knock people around, they were quite surprised. The connotations around aging can be so negative. I want to change that. And my particular focus is what we can do now as individuals to unlock the magic of our silver futures. Do you remember 50-year-olds when you were young? 60-year-olds? 70-year-olds? Yes, they bear little resemblance to those of us around the same age today. Hey, we are aging very differently from our parents and grandparents. We are younger for longer, and we're also looking younger for longer. And it's true, we are the benefits of things like medicine and sunscreen, nutrition, and other elements of a healthy lifestyle that just weren't available for many generations before us. I love this quote from the late doctor, author, and healthy aging advocate, Robert Butler. It makes us realize how fast our lives have changed. In fewer than 100 years, human beings made greater gains in life expectancy than the preceding 50 centuries. How are we aging differently? We are healthier, we're more educated, and we are delaying certain milestones. According to data from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, young people are more likely to get their first job in their mid-20s, and it's moving even out. My dad, like many of his generation, got his first full-time job at 16. The ABS also reports that we are continuing to delay or skip other milestones, such as having children and marriage. Almost a third of Australians under 25 still live at home with their parents. We now have new categories to our lifespans, not just teenagers, but now tweens. And I suggest there are whole new words to describe the stages of our silver futures we're yet to even coin. Opportunity there. One of the terms used now is retiree. I find retirement a strange word. It describes us for what we do not do, not what we do. And when retirement was first invented at the turn of last century, most people didn't even live past retirement age. Now we are faced, with 20, 30 years of retirement? What I find really fascinating and a bit troubling is that while we are living much longer lives, the age of retirement has nudged out only a little later, with people in Australia intending to retire at 64, which is up from about 61 decades ago, but the reality is still earlier. But things are changing and quite fast. People are not seeing their lives quite so linear as in education, work, retirement. And we are seeing this reflected in the stats, with close to over 20% of those aged over 65 now working. So that's 20% of those aged over 65 are in some form of paid work. And this is on the rise. And interestingly, the work participation of those aged over 65 is much higher in other countries than Australia. When you were young and you thought someone was old at 60, Barry said this before, that was because they were. I'm part of the first generation to just assume we will live till we are 80. If you were born in 1945, your parents would have expected for you, if you were a boy, to live on average to 60.1 years. And a girl was expected, if they were born in 1945, to live approximately 64.9 years. Wow. In the time since 1945, life expectancy has moved out almost 20 years. Over the last 70 years, I just want to emphasize this, we have added 20 years to our life expectancy. And while COVID has given life expectancy a little nudge, sadly, it is true that over the last century, a year or two has been added to our average life expectancy every decade. This is the massive change to life expectancy we've seen in our lifetimes. It's important to consider that we're also working very differently. A lot has changed, and as techies, you know that. We're a long way from the job for life and the gold watch to commemorate decades of faithful service my grandfather received. The ABS data reveals that now only half of all Australian workers are employed in full-time jobs with benefits. We have seen the rise of contract work, gig work, alongside the infiltration of tech into our work, connecting us wherever we are. Now we can really be in a caravan going around Australia and still be working. Technology has profoundly changed the way we work and the future opportunities that are likely to be available to us. Increasingly, jobs will be reliant on soft skills, which are skills such as communication, leadership, problem solving, and teamwork. These soft skills are completely transferable, heavily reliant on our hearts, and embedded in the empathy and self-awareness that often comes with age. How are we aging? We are all moving towards our deaths, but our paths are very different. Aging is an incredibly individual experience. This can be very obvious when you see an 80-year-old that looks or acts like a 60-year-old or younger, but it's not so obvious what is going on underneath our external wrappings. Older people are just not one homogeneous group. I think it's important to make the distinction between normal aging, optimal aging, and what we call pathological aging. Trying to decouple aging and illness is as old as the hills. In fact, Cicero is on record arguing that aging does not equal illness. So when we describe that normal aging is aging unaccompanied by illness, which is a frequent experience for most of us up until a certain age, and for some of us right to the end. Optimal aging is what we all strive for. Best to describe this as utopia. Pathological aging refers to evidence of an illness accompanying aging, Alzheimer's, for example. And out of these distinctions, we see the concept of lifespan versus health span. Our lifespans are heading toward 90 in Australia at the moment, a deviation of 5 to 10 years either side now. Our health spans have also increased with us eradicating certain diseases, but there are some concerns that our health spans are at risk as we battle with obesity, diabetes, and so on. And the challenge is to compress this morbidity, these years of morbidity. But I want to emphasize that I'm continually surprised by how little we know about aging and how much we are discovering. I find it exciting how much evidence there is now of the cognitive and emotional reserves that exist in the aging mind. How self-plasticity can increase, the potential for new learning, and the evidence of while the mechanics of our brain will slow, think the hardware, that will slow as we age. Some cognitive functions can improve as we age. So I suggest it's time to change how we think about aging. Have you thought about what your 90-year-old self looks like? What about 83? 73? Is it a welcome image? Are you happy with the thought of being older? And if not, why not? Is it because you think of death, illness, immobility? So many of our preconceptions of our own aging come from our own experiences layered since childhood. And the thing to keep reminding ourselves is we won't and don't need to age like those before us. Think about who you admire, who is at least technically old. When you think of someone like that, and your overall impression of them is, wow, they're amazing. Why is that? I know I admired my grandparents. They were skittles. Whatever life threw at them, they just got back up and kept going. That resilience was pretty awe-inspiring. I also have a bit of a crush on Joe Biden. He rides a bike, he runs a country, and hopefully he will take out Trump again, fingers crossed. Chances are, if you were thinking of someone old you admire, it is because of their optimism, their vitality, their purpose. What I find interesting is so much about aging is in our heads. Research by Dr. Becca Levy from Yale University has shown that simply having positive aging beliefs adds 7.5 years to your life. Aging beliefs are our views of how we think we will grow old, gathered over our lifetime. Some cultures revere their elders, such as many Indigenous cultures, while in other cultures, older people are portrayed as cranky or helpless. These traditions, values, and stereotypes gathered over the years unconsciously influence the expectations, attitudes, and fears we have of growing old. How old do you feel? Take a minute to check in with yourself and think about it. 3 years younger than the age, your chronological age or the age on your birth certificate? 5? How about 10? More than 10? Yes, a few nods there. A number of scientists have undertaken research that tells us that if you are over 50 years, the age you feel, the age you think you are, becomes more important to your overall well-being than your chronological age. So remember, if you feel good about your own aging, the chances are you will live 7.5 years older. That's a powerful incentive, if you're not already, to think positively about your aging, because it will affect the outcome. You're also less likely to retire at the so-called retirement age. You'll have flexible ideas about the way you'll age. You'll have a more malleable rather than a fixed view about your aging, which means that you are less stressed when faced with challenges as you age. And feeling positive about your own aging means that the extra years you have will be spent typically healthier, more active, and more psychologically resilient. So let's go back to those older people that you admire. Any excuse. Think about how they are approaching growing old. I reckon they are embracing their older selves and probably adding that 7.5 years just because of their positive outlook. Barry mentioned before about changing rituals in terms of people coming here over and before COVID and now. I have a growing preoccupation with how rituals help us navigate our days. When we were young, it's the routine and habits of family, school, and later work that delineate our days. What happens when we stop or change these? COVID highlighted for me how some of my routines and habits were a burden, and I felt freer when they were gone, but others I really missed as they impacted on my sense of self and well-being. For instance, I thought I just had a routine of walking to work and checking on flowers and trees in the parks and in the gardens on my way, and then chatting to my barista while he made me my morning coffee on the way to work. And though they were done repetitively, they had more meaning than I realized at the time, and I really missed them when they were gone. It is rituals like these that help us live out our values and carve out time for what matters most. They act as buffers to anxiety. See this bunny with a pancake on its head? I'm sure this doesn't make sense to anyone, but for me and my small team, it is what we have shared internally for over a decade if we ever have a frustrating encounter. It is one of the many in-jokes that have kept us in stitches and been passed along as an initiation ritual to new team members. When we share this silly in-joke, it makes us all feel closer. And yes, we laugh a lot. I also have a ritual on a Saturday morning when I attend my local Zumba class. It's just an hour class, but we often chat beforehand and often afterwards. We're all different ages and have nothing but Zumba in common. But I leave Zumba feeling great, not just from the dancing, but as if I have received a warm hug from the smiles and short conversations I have with my Zumba friends. Rituals like these are what make us. Whatever collective rituals, and this is one of them, which is wonderful, times of communal activity, weekly coffees, monthly book clubs, Zumba classes, or pancake bunnies, essentially rituals are habits with heart. They connect you to something larger than yourself. Why am I so interested in the role of rituals, you might ask? I'm interested in how they punctuate our days, and I wonder if we are preparing ourselves for how changes in their rhythm or their absence might affect us as we grow older. When I think how I spend my time, at the moment, a lot of it's spent on work and family, and a fair bit of sleep. What rituals are important to you? What rituals are important to you now that you think you'll be doing at 73, 83, 93? How can we live contributing lives that connect us? How can we make our preferred futures happen? Far and away, the best prize that life offers is the chance to work hard at work worth doing. Work hard at work worth doing. I love this quote because it suggests how we might evaluate the work we do. And I find it quite interesting to discover that successful people are less likely to retire. So are people that need to earn the money. You know why? It's because external goals, whether they be economic drivers or about ensuring our reputation or social standing, keep us working. You know who else finds it hard to stop working? Those whose intrinsic goals are being met. Like they are learning, growing, they like the learning, the growing, the relationships, or the impact they are making, or the sense of purpose that comes from their work. Research suggests that the main factor for whether we will continue working as we age is if we have passion for our work. Because when we have passion for our work, it leads to positive, sustained, meaningful, happy, and valuable work experiences and connections that we just don't want to end. There's people like these, Maggie Beer, Peter Doherty, Marcia Langton, and many more I admire that are still working and likely to never stop. And sure, their work might also make them feel important and make them lots of money or give them a sense of purpose, but I suggest it is probably because it is their passion. And this benefit we receive extends to whatever is our passion. Whatever we considered worth doing, be that work, community, family, reading, walking, whatever passions we have, whatever we prioritize as what we want to do, we need to find a way for them to be part of our silver futures. Otherwise, it might be time to reimagine. And reimagine is what I am seeing people do as they grow older. People are retraining, increasing their caring roles. We all know people that are using their professional skills when the reward is not financial. And it's great to see how many people are bringing their hobbies or causes or interests centre stage. The 100-Year Life is a great book if you are yet to read it. And they talk about how we need to work on our productive assets, which many of you are doing tonight by being here. The book also says we should be working on what we call our vitality assets, which is really the key to a good life. What interests me most is what Graddon says will help us navigate our silver futures most, our transformational assets. And these transformational assets help us see change as an opportunity and help us navigate through transitions, whether they be those that we make ourselves or whether they're forced upon us. The first of these is self-knowledge, understanding ourselves and our values. We need to keep our social connections and build friendships in different ways and in different places. And being open to new experiences takes us back where I was before, to the importance of rituals, but also the need to renew them. And it's good for us to feel comfortable with ambiguity and refresh and sometimes completely reinvent our habits, routines and rituals as we grow older. German psychologist Paul Baltes presented a theory that encapsulates a pragmatic approach to effectively managing aging. The renowned pianist, some of you might know or remember, Arthur Rubinstein, who at the age of 80 talked to Baltes on how he was still playing at his best. He restricted his repertoire, playing fewer pieces, focusing on quality over quantity, selection. He therefore had more time to practice each piece, optimization, and he adapted his tempo, masking any physical limitations he had, compensation. How wonderful. And Rubinstein continued to play publicly well into his late 80s, and he started to become blind. I think so much of this is useful for us, whatever age we are, choosing wisely, maximizing performance and minimizing our risks. Compensation is the process or strategies we adopt to do what is important to us. I remember my grandmother swam shorter distances as she got older, but she kept swimming even during the winter in an outside pool, no less. And she made a deal with herself that when she got home, she would have a hot shower and then make herself breakfast in bed and read the paper. This recovery and incentive was something she did not need when she was younger. But this strategy of her own devising kept her swimming well into her late 80s. I bring up Baltes because it is common sense. People do it just unconsciously. But it also explains the role technology and innovation has in our lives as we get older. It can help meet our goals. It can help us optimize the gains and minimize the losses. Think about how we're already using hearing aids, audio books. During my deep dive into aging, I've become a fan of Dr. Sandy Bond Chapman, and she's a big champion of saying without brain health, we don't have health. So my first thing about tech and aging is for us to take care of our brains. We need to think about how we're using tech. And I'm sure this tech savvy audience doesn't need to be told that this, but it's worth reiterating for some that might be online. There's a lot of talk about the importance of young people limiting their screen time to protect their brains, but this advice applies to older people too. Dr. Chapman highlights the risk for older brains. Excessive tech can lead to information overload. With tech, we often find ourselves multitasking, which isn't great for our brains. They need to rest to function optimally. Information overload and multitasking increases stress levels, harming brain health. Making space for deep thinking and time to digest information is so beneficial for our brains. Plus, physical movement is crucial. Brains thrive on blood and oxygen. While technology can foster connections, it may also hinder them, contributing to loneliness, which is incredibly detrimental to brain health. So I think my point here is, while we should see tech as an ally, it can also be an enemy. And I think some of the exciting things emerging in age tech is tech that helps us move and meet. And going back to Bolty's, it is tech that helps us achieve our goals by either maximising our gains and experiences or minimising our losses and risks. So many of us throughout our lives can benefit from tech as it enables us to work in different ways, or train or reskill, or learn new things and meet new people. And there is now an emerging area of tech, age tech, which is tech to help us age. I don't expect you to really be able to see this online or in the room, but I have it on the Silver Futures website, silverfutures.com.au. And this is actually a map my team and I made of Australia's age tech companies. A number of them are focused on improving productivity of aged care providers. But what I find more exciting is a wave that is starting of innovators trying to help us age better. There is a lot of smart home tech to help people feel safe and secure. Many of us are tracking our sleep, our blood pressure, our walks, our everything. And that's through wearables often. And it's also helping us proactively manage our health and prevent from falls and things. So there's much I could talk about, but I'm just going to expand on a few of my favourite areas. I know and love what is happening. I love what is happening in cognitive health. The research Dr. Chatton is doing is also joined by many around the world to discover more about the brain. There are so many brain training online tools now. And some of this is only possible because of what we now can do with tech to see our brains like never before. I'm not sure if any of you saw that, the MRI now is just, the resolution has gone, to the zenith. And we're also getting the data and the AI to actually help us understand these images and changes. But there are some amazing things happening in our backyards relating to brains. Tasara Therapeutics, based at Uni Melbourne, is building 3D models of brains. And there's lots of these little mini brains being all around the world, which help test future medicines and treatments. Remembering that our brains are the best tech we have. So finding out why some brains can buffer the impact of aging and preserve cognitive abilities is incredibly important. I also love what people are doing to help us discover the benefits of music as we age. Music is good for all of our brains, but especially helpful for those suffering cognitive decline. We are seeing Respark, which is based out of New South Wales, providing music to dementia sufferers in aged care settings. And recently, Dr. Felicity Baker has led a team here in Melbourne, the Match Project, which received $2 million from Google's philanthropic arm, which is helping to devise ways for music to be delivered to help the moods and behaviours of dementia sufferers and also help their carers. Our independence is built upon how much we can move as we age. I think in the future, instead of measuring how much we move, we're going to measure how much we're sedentary. Tech, whether it be through TV or the laptop, often makes us sedentary, but there are lots of ways that tech can help us improve our moves. Now, this one is called Clock Yourself, clockyourself.com.au, and it's a very clever and very simple app that a young physio in Queensland, Meg Lowry, has developed. And Clock Yourself can help build mental and physical fitness. It's what tech does best. It is simple and easy. It's got a very easy interface with the user in mind, and essentially it encourages you to take random steps around an imaginary clock face. This is good for your body and for your brain. There is a lot happening in the smart homes monitoring world, as I mentioned before, and this is important because many of us want to age in place, whatever that place might be. Australia provides long-term care for almost 20% of the population aged over 80 years, and 6% of those aged over than 65. And again, I want to stress this is very high compared to other countries. In 2014, the Grattan Institute reported that 70% of older Australians said they would prefer to die at home, yet only 14% currently do. Most of us spend our last days in hospital. Compare that with New Zealand, the US, Ireland, and France, where over 30% of people die at home, as according to their wish. So I think we're going to see a lot more tech to help support care and palliative care in the home. We will see an uptake of technologies that help us ensure the care economy is truly cared. It's not just for those being cared for, but also for those who work to provide care. Robots, automation, and AI are revolutionising lifting, medicine management and nutrition, and streamlining services. This will see a freeing of carers' time in aged care facilities and hospitals, but also in the home. Already too many carers are injured by lifting, pushing, and bending, and this can be reduced significantly by robots and automation. Just imagine if we had robots just to do a simple task like just replace our soiled bedclothes, and they would do the washing, hanging out, and laundry and replace them. And this is just one regular task that many carers know far too well. Australia has a number of young companies on the social robots and home monitoring space. Has anyone seen social robots or uses one? So tonight, I'm going to show you one from overseas. Welcome LEQ. And LEQ was released in 2022 with quite a bit of fanfare. As you can see, she looks like a lamp with a head. She has a base weighing about 3.5 kilos and a detachable screen. She's now boosted by generative AI. So she's voice activated and she's proactive. So she's a bit like Google or Alexa smart speakers, but she is a companion robot. And the early results claim a reduction in loneliness, and users say that it feels like they're living with someone. And they like the fact that she proactively reminded them to exercise or take medications and prompted them to contact friends or family, walk around the block. Early results show that users are chatting on average around 20 minutes a day to LEQ. In New York, 800 older adults have been provided with LEQ with the aim to reduce loneliness. I think the interesting thing here is that while the benefit for users is that she is a proactive companion and can personalise her chat to reflect your life and needs, a number of the features fall into a carer's role, such as medication reminders. And the reasons why LEQ is bought by friends and family is for peace of mind. They feel better that their older relative or friend has LEQ to take care of them, even though LEQ falls into a murky area, as she is not considered a medical device or a safety one, and it's unlikely at this stage that users are protected any more than they would be for a toy. The thought of relying on a stylish, intuitive robot and chatting to her during the day first worried me. Would I be embarrassed by her presence, especially when people visited? Feel that I'm being patronised, or perhaps could I grow to rely on her for company? But then I remembered my grandfather's being kept company by radio and TV. So is there really that much difference? Especially considering how many people live alone as we get older. And LEQ does not need to be fed or have any other needs met, except being charged, which is a relief. I think the interesting thing about LEQ is how important voice is as we get older when using tech. I'm not sure how many of you are using voice much now, but it is really the key as you grow older. We don't need our glasses. We don't need to find the tech sometimes to use it. And I think a lot of people are finding the ease of using voice. Funnily enough, my younger daughter is really good at it, and she can, I should learn from her. I think the interesting thing about the rise of technology that can help us in the home is whether it replaces human contact or enhances it. Will LEQ's prompts to ring my friends and make contact with family and make me leave the house, help me to stay connected, more or less? Hopefully, as I mentioned earlier, tech can help us to do what we want to do, and hopefully it can help us move and meet more easily. I'm loving learning more about aging. There is just so much to learn. So where do I want to leave things today? I want to remind you of this. It's never too late to be what you might have been. So I want you to start the conversation or continue it if you've been having it. We don't need to age in the same way as those who have gone before us. And this has happened. We need to remind ourselves that this has happened so fast. Communities, work environments, governments, I don't think they are ready. They'll need to change to reflect our silver needs. And I'm not even sure we are ready. But change does start with us. I want you to remember the way you think about your aging matters. And I want to suggest that maybe we all should rethink our rituals, be open to tech and to strategies that can help us do whatever we want to do as we age. And perhaps realize that more is not always better. Baltes, he's a favourite of mine now, suggests that we generate new forms of mastery and progress because of our limitations and losses. If we treat ourselves with self-compassion, we really might unlock the joy of our silver futures. I truly believe we're standing on the edge of a really exciting frontier. Generations of today have the privilege of such potential for their silver futures. So today I've tried to provoke you to think about what you want to be when you grow up, but I also realize it was always the journey, not the destination. And perhaps one thing I can leave with you is that it's not about what we want to be, but also what we want to do that brings purpose to our lives. I want you to take a new look at your future self and smile. The world is full of possibilities. You won't be alone. More of us, fingers crossed, will get to grow old and very old. Whatever age you are today, I do suggest the time to start thinking about your silver future, our silver futures is now. And ask yourself, what do you want to do when you grow up? Thank you.
We're going to have some time for questions, and I'll try and see people putting their hands up on the screen, and we have a microphone which Kirsten will take around for people who are asking questions in the room. The first thing that struck me was when you said the word retirement was not a good word because it describes something we don't do rather than something we do. And we talk about the retirement age, but it's really wrong, isn't it? It's the pension age. That's what it is. And as you pointed out, back in 1945, when the pension age was set at 65, people were living less years. The average life expectancy was less than that. And the pension age is still 65 or thereabouts, even though the average life expectancy is shifted to 80, which seems quite crazy in this day and age when so many of us are able to work so much longer and when the country needs workers. Would you care to comment at all about that?
Yes, I agree. I think it's interesting because I think the world's not equal. So there's a lot of jobs that rely on the body. And even though I said, there's lots of positive things about aging, the body does age, and so I sort of think for someone that's using their body a lot, there is need for pensions. But there's also pensions for people that are younger that have issues with work. So I think having something that actually helps anyone that can't work, because work is wonderful. People want to work. I think what's interesting is, people can work past the retirement age, but I don't think organisations are ready. In fact, even here in Melbourne, there's companies that pretty much push you out the door, as we know, and still are. And there's actually things around some of their rules in terms of owning of shares and how they do things that means that people are actually hanging up their boots well before they really want to. So I think it is a perception thing that a lot of people feel like they have to retire and maybe didn't really ask the question at the time, is that really what I want? And I don't think organisations, governments, councils, I don't think any of us have been asking it enough. What do I want? What do I want to do? And also, are there options to do smaller bits of work or to skill across or skill down, or, I think that's where life has to change a bit.
Any questions in here? Yep.
I think you've underestimated the amount of retirees can do with community work. I think community service for our age group, most of our age group.
I think of that as work, so I shouldn't have.
Well, I think it should be, that really is just as important, I think, at this stage.
Yeah, I actually think the future is community. And I think not to value that as work is also a mistake, because it is work, in terms of working, having your brain, having all those connections. So yes, good point. I need to flesh that out. But I suppose it's people feeling like they're contributing. That's my word. So whether you're contributing through paid work or contributing through what you're doing with your family or with your community or in some way, I think that's what people really need as they grow older. And that's what the research will say. I suppose for most of my audiences, people are younger and actually thinking about what they're going to do. And I should definitely put that as a focus, because we need more people working to and for the community.
And volunteering in your user group.
Yes, and coming to the PC users group here in Moorabbin.
Indeed.
Hello. I was just wondering, what actual groups have you engaged with regard to this?
Oh, lots. So I suppose, to be honest, when I first started, it was COVID. Well, no, that's not true. I actually went years before COVID. I started an app about 10 years ago. So I thought tech could help me connect people that were caring. So a bit like what you were saying then about getting people to gather around someone that needed care, and how could you sort of provide that community. But obviously it didn't end up working. So originally it was techies, I suppose, because that's my world. But we contacted a lot of groups then that were actually looking after people. So when I sort of said, what about something that helped people connect and project manage almost the care of someone? I suppose I was interested in how there wasn't enough tech solutions to help people. And then I started studying. So through that process, I talked to a lot of people, and then I started studying at Melbourne Uni. So that was sort of the next thing. And then I've been involved by working out who's investing and who's encouraging a lot of these innovations. And I suppose I've been a bit saddened because I thought there'd be so many. Philanthropic ventures are doing the main lifting, which is, again, community people. And there's not much in terms of new ways of thinking and innovations coming
From business?
No.
Or industry?
No, not in my experience, no.
Yeah. You see an opportunity there?
I do. I sort of am trying at the moment for people to think of new ways to use sort of elders in work settings or in any setting where they can contribute, because I think there's an opportunity that we haven't really realised. And I suppose, if you're a bit bolshy like my grandmother, you probably could find, a way in, but for some people it's just really hard. So I think, how do you find your place, and there's going to be more of us. So I think we need to think of how do we do that better.
Rachel, there's a couple of questions on the chat. Wayne Fitzsimmons asks, hi Rachel, what is your perception of how older people connect with the younger folks, especially in the competitive workplace?
Oh, Wayne, that's a good one. There's lots of research and work getting done in the US, particularly about the multi-generational workforce. And I find that really interesting because I think, you know, what's really interesting is that there's research to show that people who are older actually get along better with the youngest. So it's sort of that. So the opportunity for actually the youngest people to learn is often from the oldest. And so there is a lot of education to be done, because I think that magic needs to be unlocked. And I think for anyone that's, you know, like me, had the magic of grandparents, I even had the magic of great grandparents, you know that. We all know that that's the magic. So why are workplaces not acknowledging that? In terms of the competition, Wayne, I'm trying to think what you mean by that. I think we need to make young people relax, because there's not enough people to do the work, and older people, there's enough room for all of us. And a lot of older people don't want to be the CEO and don't want to be in that role forever. So I think, my point would be is there's no rush, because you too might live to your 100. So, you know, take your time and learn.
Another one, Rachel, from Steph Lancaster. He says, "Thank you, Rachel. Please come back again. Wonderfully targeted and such a great message to embellish greater opportunities towards greater fulfilment. Love mention of rituals in reinforcement of values and each day awareness. Can you suggest ways a group such as ours might jointly apply your content in a practical sense? For example, a work group or special interest gathering to explore further to become a focus and a value in our club?"
I'll have a think about that. There's actually a few groups in the US which I've been in contact with that were actually testing stuff. I'm seeing your group has actually got a tech base. I wonder whether that's something. I'll put you in touch with them. They don't have anything in Asia Pac, but one of the things that does is that a lot of the young innovators, and a lot of them are actually in need of help, are often people that have stumbled upon a problem. So clock yourself. Meg is in Queensland. She's a physio. So that's how she's designed that. But they need older people, younger people, they need people to test. They need people to give them feedback and things. So I just wonder whether that's some way you could help yourselves, but also help other people, because some of these things are really interesting, but it's more interesting to talk about than to discover on your own. But I will have a think about that. Thank you, Steph.
Hi, I find that a lot of what you say is idealistic, but when it comes to actual doing, the biggest problem is employment, HR issues, regulations, and therefore it can exclude any business trying to encourage older people to keep working, younger ones. There's a finite budget, and once it's gone, that's it.
Yeah.
So I just see problems there.
Oh, there's massive. So I'm trying to get a few pilots off the ground to actually help work out ways that we could get organisations to sort of review sort of how people as they get older would like to work. As you can imagine, it's much harder than I thought it would be. But what's happening is in Europe and in Scandinavia, of course, some of these things are actually already embedded. So they get, you know, workplaces to encourage people to have these discussions in their late 40s, 50s, so then they can set them up for different roles and different opportunities as they get older. And we are seeing that because they've got more employment. You know, in certain countries, employment of older people is just the norm. And then in other countries like ours, it's not. So I think you're right. There's a lot of education on part of ourselves, realizing that we can do whatever we want as we get older, if we want to, however we want to contribute, but also for organizations to realize. And one of my big challenges at the moment is tech is so young, it's ridiculous. And there is no even emphasis on, there's no even, room almost for people as they get older in terms of tech companies. So I think that's a big opportunity. Oh, yes, yes. Yeah, their whole emphasis is on young people. Yep. And even just the way pay. I mean, certain jobs that I would like to do as I get older, you know, they incentivize them to actually employ younger people. So a lot of those things have to be undone to actually help us. Yeah.
Is there a perception that employing older people means greater risk for businesses in some way?
Yeah, I think all of us are needing to rethink how we think about aging. And I think that's one of the points, is that people have thought that, and it's sort of, you know, but
they've had a little more success in Europe.
Yes, definitely. There's more success in Europe. And actually, going back to the previous question, I read this very interesting thing, and it was told to me by one of the people advising me, who's a legal academic at Melbourne Uni, where I think it was in Finland, they basically made anyone that got injured, instead of just getting normal insurance, they got they had to pay it, rather, like the organisation did, and suddenly all these workplaces became safe. And one of the points is that some of that was just things like people not having signs big enough for people that eyesight were failing. There's lots of people in their 20s that also have that issue. So it was one of those things where you realise that lots of other governments have actually worked out ways to incentivise organisations.
But it's definitely government and not industry that's been driving those things, yeah?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Time moves on, and I want to say thank you to Rachel. What she had to say was of a lot of interest, and the number of people online increased as she was speaking. So that's a good sign. I think of myself as 48. I take my age. I read from the right rather than from the left, you see. The only problem is with this theory, I add on 10 years next year, so I'm not sure whether it's a good idea or not. But we have, Rachel, a little thank you for you, and I think it could benefit from ageing also.
Everything benefits from ageing. Thank you.
Right, the next thing on the agenda is to introduce our very intelligent, handsome, well-educated chairman, Hugh McDonald.
Thanks for that introduction, Barry. The check's in the mail. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to me from the March 2024 monthly meeting. You're all doing well this month. So my first item tonight, as has been the case the last few months, is to award the Volunteer of the Month for March 2024, and this month it's our very own Choi Lei. So congratulations to Choi. Choi's been a very long time volunteer at the club. She told me in an email this week she's been doing the raffle since the club was at Chadstone, which I believe was at least 20 years ago. She was also the librarian at one point here at the club, and always willing to help out with any kind of volunteering task that's required around the place. Like, for example, last year when we had the Bunnings sausage sizzle, she showed up to that to cook sausages and serve sausages. So yeah, very deserving recipient of the award. So congratulations, Choi. Come up and get your award and your $50 Coles Myer voucher. Congratulations. Would you like to say anything? Thank anyone?
Thank you so much, everyone. I enjoy doing what I am doing, and it's squeezing a bit of juice out of retirement. Well, I just contribute something. since I got some something from the club, I give you this joke that I heard recently. This guy was getting peanuts from someone, and he had some, and then the other person said, have more. He had a few more. And then the guy wondered, why is she or he giving me all these peanuts? And the person said, well, I only have gums and I have the chocolate outside.
Thanks, Joy. So there we are. So that's the volunteer of the month for this month, and we'll have another award next month. And obviously, as I mentioned every month when I give out this award, the idea of this award is to, firstly, to thank our long-standing volunteers like Joy, but also secondly to encourage more volunteering here at the club. There's plenty to do, and you know, Rachel talked tonight about, you know, people not wanting to retire and wanting to get involved in things, you know, past the age of retirement. So, you know, MelbPC is a great place to get involved in something, and there's plenty to help out with if you do feel inclined to help out, anyone of any age for that matter. So yeah, we're looking for things like, as mentioned last month, more I Help volunteers, more Be Connected volunteers. We have a need for another office volunteer. So if anyone is interested in doing some work in the office, you can get in touch. We've got some committee vacancies still. So if you feel like getting involved in the running of the club and having a say on the future of the organisation, then you know, you're always welcome to approach me or any other committee member about that as well. Many other things too. So look out for an email from me with further details about that. If you're here tonight, you've seen our new pool table, which has been donated by a member of the public, and we had a number of volunteers help us to bring it up into the club and to put it together. Some of them are here tonight. So Ben Gray wasn't actually a member at the time, but he helped out. So thanks very much for that, Ben. Mick Adams has been the instigator of this whole pool table project. He's been approaching people since the open day last year about it, and he's the one who's done all the work to get it in here. So like a big thank you to Mick for that. A few others like John Shirts, I know, put a lot of work into disassembling the pool table downstairs and bringing it up, and I think he helped with putting the felt back on and putting it all back together. And there were probably other people as well who I'm not aware of. So if you were one of those people, then thank you to you as well. And so the reason that we've got the pool table, that we're trying it out at the moment, is you know, you might have come into the club to do some 3D printing, or you might have come in here to use a Wi-Fi or attend a SIG, and you might feel like staying on to you know, spend some socialization time with fellow members, and you know, what a great way for anyone to, you know, have a game of pool and engage in some conversation and get to know people a little better. So that's what we're trying to do with things like the pool table. It's there's nothing beyond that. We're not trying to make it into a men's club or anything like that there may be some concern about, but that's what it is. The other thing I want to talk about this month is so obviously, you know, the committee is you know, always mindful of the fact that, you know, we have to try and bring in new members and market new activities and get the place you know, busier and more people involved. And so So the committee this coming weekend is going to be having a meeting with a guy named Taylor Tran, who might be helping us to, you know, to come up with some ideas and a strategy on the future growth. So there's not a lot to say about that at this point in time because we haven't had the meeting yet, but there'll be more to say about it after the meeting. So I'll have more to say about that next month. But I just wanted to bring it to your attention that we are thinking about the future. You know, we've got to try and get more members and younger members, and we've got to try and get more activities and just try and make the place, you know, more vibrant and interesting, which is what we're trying to do. And I think we're doing a good job so far, but we can always do better. So that's what we're trying to do. To that end as well. So we last year, you might remember a group came in called STEM Incubators, a group of kids who had a project on food waste, an app that developed recipes around what was in your fridge. So we're going to be doing some more work with them throughout this year. And so the first kind of collaboration that we're going to be doing with them is a few members of the club are going to be working with them on a project for the City of Kingston to develop a smart battery recycling station that will be able to weigh itself and report back when it's full. So that'll be interesting to see how that unfolds, and I'm sure we'll get everyone involved in that in to do a presentation when it's finished. That's really all the club news I have this month. Does anyone have any questions or comments they want to make, either here or on Zoom? No? Okay, well, hope you all have an excellent month, and thank you very much. And I will be away next month, but someone will be here to give this report, and I'll see you again in May. So see you then.
Thank you, Hugh. The next is iHelp. iHelp is one of the most important, I think, facilities that this club runs. All of us between Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m, we can ring the number that's on the website and get some technical help. And there's a bunch of people who provide it, and none of them are experts in everything, but they'll pass the buck to the right person. And iHelp is free for members. It's a really good reason for being a member of the club. And tonight, Cedric Wyndham, who's one of the iHelp volunteers, is going to begin iHelp. Cedric, are you there?
Yes, I'm on Zoom.
Excellent. So do you have anything to say, or do you want questions right up from the start?
I'll start off with questions. I've got some comments if we run out of steam. So if anybody has questions already, yes, willing to see if I can have a go at it.
I can't see anybody online with a hand up, and I can't see anyone on the room with a hand up.
Okay. One thing I was going to discuss, we've had two recent cases where somebody suspects that there's something going a bit funny with their banking accounts, and there have been questions as to whether there's been unauthorised access to a bank account. Somewhat different details. We've been asked for bit of help with helping the person make sure there's no malware in the computer and clean it up. And what they do, in one case at least, I'm not sure about the second case, but in one case at least, the person suspected that something funny is going on, reported it to the bank. The bank shut down internet banking. The person ran various scans, viral scans and so forth, and everything came up clean. The bank reinstated it. He got a phone call, which after a while he realised was not from the bank. And of course, once realised, shut the phone call down. At present, the bank has suspended the internet banking for the second time, and he's come to us for advice on what to do. Initially, our response to him was that it's really not us to advise what to do. The bank should be giving him advice on what they wanted before they felt that the internet banking would be safe again. I haven't really asked him exactly what happened when he took this to the bank. Well, I haven't been handling the job particularly, but it seems the bank hasn't given him any guidance. And it seems to be pretty much the same in the second case. So what the person, the eye helper who's handling the case, has given him a quite comprehensive list of jobs to do to make sure everything's clean at his end. We don't really know a lot about whether how much information the scammer has, or whether they're just trying to acquire some more information. So it's a little bit hard to say. We did initially, we did say to him, well, go to a bank. We expect they'll probably ask you to go to a commercial organisation and have a professional cleanup. But so far as I can gather, in neither case has the bank actually said that. Of course, we can give advice, and I did say to him, well, I thought probably some of our people would be quite capable of giving at least as competent advice as many of your suburban computer shops. But the difference is that we're volunteer, we're not charging for the advice, and therefore we're not going to give them any guarantees. If the bank says we want a guarantee from an organisation that the computer's clean, well, at that point, he obviously is going to have to pay for it rather than getting free advice.
We probably don't have insurance in case we get sued for giving wrong advice.
Yeah, well, we do have some insurance, and we do have insurance that which I think would cover us if somebody reckoned that we'd given them faulty advice. But the important thing is that we're just saying that this is advice which we don't guarantee. We'll help you as a one user to another, but we're not charging, and you can't be coming back at us for that. Of course, it's very rare for people to complain. Very few occasions we have had complaints about our advice. More often than not, it's been an accusation which has not been sustained.
Yeah.
There have been reasons other than our advice why there's been some perception that something was wrong. But
thanks, Cedric. John Thompson online has got a question, and then there's one in the room.
Yeah. Okay.
Hi, Cedric. I've got a Windows 10 and a Windows 11 desktop, and when I turn it off, which I do every night, wake it up again in the morning, when I turn it off, for some reason or other, both machines apparently turn off and then they reboot themselves. It seems to have something to do with the version or the updates that are current at the time, because every now and then that disappears. And when I turn it off, it stays off. But most of the time it comes back on again. And you have to hold the start button down again, sorry, the physical button on the computer to turn the power off. I've tried all sorts of different settings for power efficiency and so on, and I'm getting nowhere with it. Can you shed any further light on it?
That's not one I've run into myself. I'm afraid just about all I could say would be a Google search. I have, on occasions, we've had members, we had at least one member who would hold a power button in for considerable lengths of time rather than just pushing the power button to start, or this member would hold a button in, and of course that would cause all sorts of problems of a system. More often than not, the computer just wouldn't start up, which is quite different to what you're talking about.
It's almost the same as hibernate, where the computer apparently turns itself off, and if you touch the keyboard or something, it'll fire up again the next morning. But it's not quite the same.
Yeah, no, it's certainly I would have started by looking at your sleep settings, but I'm understanding that you've certainly haven't found anything obvious in that. So yeah, I'm a bit lost to explain what's causing it to do it. But
I've even used the shortcut on the desktop, which invokes the shutdown.exe module, and that doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
Cedric, maybe one of the other iHelp people would
yes, it's
have a clue on
this session definitely. I'm inviting anybody else to come in who has a particular idea.
I don't have a solution, but a quick Google tells me a lot of people have had this problem. And you get, for example...
This is Harry Lewis, by the way.
Yeah, how to... 11 ways to fix it when Windows 11 PC keeps restarting from one website. So you have a lot of company there, John.
I'll try Google. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Gentleman in the room. I don't remember your name, I'm sorry.
Oh, hello, Cedric. It's Nico Reinhardt here. Nico Reinhardt here.
Yes.
Yes, thanks very much for your the exchange of emails. I had another discussion or an email response from Chris Holmes, and he recommended that he could do a big deep clean. Yeah, that's but what's required, what he suggested is too involved for me to do on my own, and I think I would do more harm than good. So I would love some assistance if possible. If you can point me in the right direction, I'll be happy.
Yeah, certainly. If you have suspicions that you've done a clean and there still seem to be unusual behaviour or you suspect that somebody's got access to your computer, at that point, you need to remember how your computer boots up can be a clue to what's going on. If you really have a expert hacker who really knows how to write stuff, he may write a malware that initiates and hides itself very early in the boot sequence. And there's been, for many years, one of the suggestions has been that you go into a safe boot, because that means that a lot of things don't start up, and that malware may not start up and may not be able to hide itself with a safe boot routine. A further step in this direction, one that goes even further instead, is to, I think Chris mentioned, what do you call it, Kaspersky, KRD, Kaspersky Rescue Disk, and he mentioned one other. Both of those are things where your C drive is not running the system. It's your operating system's not running. You put a external something, either a optical disc, or these days 90% chance it'll be a USB stick in, boot from that USB stick, and that USB stick then does a search of your computer. And the general idea is that if the malware's on the C drive, that malware program won't have started up and therefore won't have been able to hide itself. That's certainly, that was one part of what Chris mentioned, and that's certainly a step, one of the many steps that is worthwhile. But the thing that I'm surprised with both these cases is the fact that the bank hasn't really come along and said, well, you've got to do ABC. I'd have thought it would have been the bank. Well, I would like the bank to be responsible for security, but I have heard, I think even government spokespeople have said that there's a belief in government that industry isn't doing as much about computer safety as they should be, and there's been talk about tightening up regulation responsibility for industry when it comes to financial safety on the internet. But at present it seems that well, they just leave it to you, and if you lose money, well, sometimes bad luck. Sometimes they'll give it a refund you, and sometimes they won't. So, and that's what from what I gather, that's what the approach they're taking in this case.
Yeah. What really got me that I got hold of my screen without giving them access to it. I saw my cursor going up and down the screen, and they didn't get that information from me. I didn't get that information from me.
Sorry, I missed part of that.
Oh, I'm sorry. When I was having a discussion with the guy, when he told me that there were some suspicious transactions on my account, he asked me to check it, and I did, and I saw my cursor going up and down, and I didn't touch anything, and I didn't give him access to my screen. So how it happened, I don't know.
Oh, okay. So far from what I heard, I hadn't really quite worked out how much was going on. But yeah, all right. Obviously, if you haven't given him access, it's obviously not Quick Assist or TeamViewer or one of those items that normally access your computer. It is really a malware type of program that's accessing you without your permission.
Yeah.
That really does worry me. Another possibility would be to reset your not. I take it you've got what we call a wired internet. You've got a modem and then NBN connection. Is that correct?
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
Asking what type of internet you've got. Is it are you on NBN through a modem router?
Well, I'm living in a retirement village, and
Yeah.
I'm connected through the central system.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So you've got what I call wired connection rather than having a wireless connection to the nearest cell phone tower. Okay. Yeah. Which of course is what most of us have. Something else that could well be worthwhile, and I didn't think about this when I sent you an email a few hours back. I would reset to default your router, and then once you've done that default, assume that the fellow has somehow or other discovered your router's default password, and therefore go into the router and change the password. Whether you change the what's called SSID, the router's identification name, that's an extra step. I'm not sure quite that that's necessary, but I'd start working on both your computer and on your router to make sure that he's not managing to access by that technique. Normally, I've never found a lot of need for paid antivirus systems, but do you have a paid or a free version of your antivirus?
I've got a paid version of
AVG, is it?
AVG, yeah. All right,
Yes.
yeah. With most people, I've always said, well, unless you're doing rather dangerous sorts of activities, and if you're, and for certain things, a lot of pornographic sites are known as that, but it's not just them. Some church sites are known to be sometimes rather poor security, simply because they rely on volunteers who often aren't that skilled for their internet. But unless you're accessing a lot of somewhat dangerous sites, I myself tend to just use the default Windows system, and I've never had problems. But now that you've got a problem, I think you need to go a step further than just the free Windows security system. And AVG's got a pretty good reputation. You can look up the internet, and people are regularly doing surveys of how good each of the security systems, where AVG and all the others, the whole time, and you'll find one comes top of a ladder one time, and a few months later another one's top of the ladder. But AVG is normally pretty near the top.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Thank you, Cedric.
Yeah.
Cedric,
Thank you.
I think my view has been, my understanding has been that the virus checking element in these services like AVG is no different when you pay them money. What you're paying for is support when you need it. So I'd strongly encourage the member to contact AVG because he's paying them precisely for that. That might not be the only resort. I would certainly myself, I'd find myself recommending a bootable virus checker like the Kaspersky one for the reason you gave, that it doesn't depend on Windows being loaded. But I would certainly encourage the member to contact AVG and get the service he's been paying for, which in my understanding is principally that you get some support when you need it from them directly. Whereas if you're not paying them anything, you're not going to get any support. You're only going to get their virus checking engine working for you.
Thank you, Harry. Well, it's time to close the meeting, but I would like to just share with you something from an experience I had last year when I was visiting Ireland, and was fortunate enough to be able to have a conducted tour of a whisky distillery. And Irish whiskey is pretty good. And the guide was very good. She showed us the whole operation from the start, with the grain coming in to the boxes of whiskey going out at the other end. And she mentioned in passing that the previous month, one of the workers had fallen into a 2,000-gallon vat of whiskey and drowned. And I remember mumbling something like, you know, that was a terrible way to go. And she said that she wasn't too sure about that because he got out twice to go to the toilet. The meeting is now closed.